Well, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with my co host, Michelle Kline. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you? This is Michelle Kline with Kline Hospitality. How is everyone out there?
Yeah, happy summertime for everyone. And on this episode, so we just did a few weeks ago talking about the airlines with travel and tourism, and we thought we'd bring back that subject again to talk about some WTF moments with the airlines. And I'm sure since we've recorded this in the last few weeks, some more WTF airline stories have popped up as well.
Absolutely. We had so much we wanted to share back then, and yes, more stories have collected since. So it's exciting. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I am going to be sharing two different stories. And what's interesting is that both stories were from very different airlines, but in a similar region. So my first WTF story was I was in Hawaii at the Big Island, flying back to Los Angeles, California, to come back home after a full week of being out on the field. I was on an assignment. My most of my assignment involved for me to be working the overnight shift with the team, and then during the day doing all the PR I had to do in regards to or in relation to the hotel itself. And as you can imagine, of being on the road for a whole week and dealing with various different time zones, plus working overnight, plus working during the day to check in with the leaders at the hotel, the day that it was time for me to go home, I was very, very ready to go home. And I get to the airport, and if anyone has traveled to the Big Island, the airport in Kona is pretty much the areas that are covered of the airport are very limited. So, and also the plugs, there were like maybe two or three plugs around the airport, and we were all sharing plugs. So here's the thing. The plane that I was supposed to get on was delayed. With that delay, that results in a whole bunch of people in the same area in the airport, a very small island airport with barely any roof, in an area where it rains quite a bit here and there. It was a very specific time of the year where, it would rain. So obviously, we got some rain while we were there, all fighting for the same plug. Finally, the plane gets to the island. Everyone deplanes, they do what they gotta do. We get on the plane, we get to LA. And when we get to LA, it was already fairly late, probably around 11:30 at night. Everyone who lost their connecting flight, which was probably 80% of the people on the plane, we get in line at the counter by the gate, where they were going to provide us with accommodations for the rest of the evening, and then in the morning they would send us back to our final destination on a connecting flight from them, first thing in the morning. So I stand in line just like everybody else, and I could hear people like screaming, and they were getting upset. And, this is crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? So here I am at the same time, I'm checking to see if there's any other flights that are going out. I finally get to my position at the counter, and they're like, yeah, we can't help you. I'm sorry. I was just standing in line for like 45 minutes. What do you mean you can't help me, right? Mind you, this is 11:30 at night. I had been working for a whole week overnight and then some during the day. So by the time I get here, I was really tired. I had been on
Oh,
the clock
man.
for over 24 hours at this point. So I didn't have the same level of patience as someone would normally have, even when you missed your connection. So I'm like, what do you mean? Well, yeah, there's no more accommodations in the city. There's nothing we can do. And I'm thinking, okay, are you at least gonna give me a blankie, a little pillow, something? No, we don't have anything available. It was so rude. The whole interaction was so awful, which made total sense why everyone was getting so upset as they were lined up ahead of me. So I'm like, okay, whatever, there's nothing I can do. I considered for a minute. I started calling the hotels in the area, and I had a few contacts in the immediate LAX area, and they were like, I am so sorry. There is nothing I can do. We have no room. Okay, so everyone is booked. I consider for a second getting a rental car and driving home. Home to me is Las Vegas, and it's like, 4 hour drive from LA, especially at nighttime, maybe less. And then I thought, no way. I am so super tired. There's no way I'm gonna make it home safe. So I'll just stay and see what happens. So I sit in an area near my gate because that's where I was gonna depart from, like
Mhm.
5 hours from then. And all of a sudden, the entire wing where I was at goes dark. It was so scary.
Oh,
And it
yikes.
was the same day where the attack had happened there was an attack that happened in France. I don't know if you remember this a few years ago. And immediately my thought was like, "Ooh, WTF, I almost said it. We're under attack. What's going on?" So I'm freaking out, right? There's no one around me. And all of a sudden I see this little dangling thing across the hall with a little light on it. So I go over, and it was a team member from the airport. And I said, "Is this normal? Like, what is happening? Why is the Oh, we're under construction. It's totally normal." I'm like, okay. Like, he's like, "You shouldn't be here anyway." And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm waiting for my flight." And no one from my airline could help. So I figured I would just stay here, right? There were no restaurants, no, nothing was open. It was like nothing really happened on that side. And I figured I'm not going to go through security twice. I'll just stay on this
No.
side. But because everything was under construction, there was nothing, nowhere for you to go rather than just staying there.
Wow.
So he's like, "Okay, I'll show you how to get how to go outside." Okay. So I figured, screw this. I'm not
Yeah.
going back home on this airline. So I booked a different flight for that same morning. So I made it from my gate to the other terminal. Obviously, LAX is gigantic. So I finally make it to when I make it to the other side, nothing. No restaurants, no bars, no nothing, nothing, nothing. The
Oh,
entire
man.
counter area was closed, and TSA security checkpoint was closed. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? I found a column. I like sat like in a corner, and I was so tired at this point. I was like beyond. I was probably up for like at that point maybe 28, 30 hours that this was going since my last sleep. So it was awful. It was awful. I never flew that airline again.
Yeah.
Never.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. Anyway, that took a
Yep.
while. I
Yeah.
hope you're still on the other side. It was so intense though.
Yeah, but and that's the thing with the airlines is, they also too, they're like, okay, it's 11 o'clock at night, my shift's almost leaving. So I just need to get to that time of clocking out, and then I don't have to deal with
Totally.
it.
They don't care.
No.
No. Not even a bag of peanuts.
Yeah.
Not even a bag of peanuts. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. What's
Yeah.
your story?
So mine is, well, being on the airline or being on the flight, and then, I have my setup of, okay, I'm going it was New York to San Francisco, and to being like, okay, well, I'm going to be basically on the flight now for about 5 hours. So I'm going to be able to do some work stuff. I'll have the Wi-Fi in my outlet, and I'll be good. Well, then we get onto the flight, we get up into the air, and I'm like, okay, I keep hitting refresh to when the icon's gonna show up so I can get
You
onto the
you hope
Wi-Fi.
that you will get a connection.
Yeah. Well, oh, sorry, we're having Wi-Fi delays. We won't be having any Wi-Fi. So now we have no Wi-Fi, no in-flight entertainment, and also to this flight, they ended up changing out their flight to a different plane. So this flight also too didn't have any outlets. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have 5 hours that I'm going to be really productive because no one's going to be able to bother me up in the air, and I can get things done. Now here I am a half hour later, my laptop's already dead. A half hour later after that, my phone's already dead. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with myself? Like entertaining for the next 4 hours. And it's crazy is because we're now so accustomed to, and I remember what traveling when like in-flight entertainment was just coming out. You still had the like little phone in the middle seat, and that was like the cool thing if you could like call someone on the phone while up in the air. But anyway, so here we are. But then they're just like, all right, well, tough luck basically. You have no entertainment and you're just expected to sit here like sardines on this cross America flight, and that's it. Here you are like paying extra because it's a airline that has all of this, new technology with the in-flight entertainment and the Wi-Fi and all of that. And it's just like, nope, sorry, try again, and that's it. And then it's, nothing of being like, I'm so sorry. On your next flight, we'll give you a credit, a drink voucher, because what else are you supposed to do? Like I might as well
WTF?
mention. Yeah, but nothing. Just like, sorry, thanks, come again. That's it. But and that's the thing with the service with the airlines is that, they really need to go and back to the basics of saying, okay, if we do have these problems that do occur, obviously our first and foremost is we want to get to the destination safely. But if things are going bad, okay, here's our checklist. I mean, you already know that they're reading of, they're going through their safety check with the seat buckles and like opening up the, how to put on the yellow raft and things like that. It's like you could have it, the airline should have also too of steps like step one, if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, this is what you should say and this is what you should be able to provide. If a
How to
guest is
troubleshoot
having
your own Wi-Fi.
yes, exactly. And it's just a step by step process because if the staff hasn't been trained properly, you can't just assume that they know of just general like in the moment what should be done, but just giving those guides to the staff, because also too it's like, okay, now I get off of the flight and I go to, the hotel, or I get into my car rental, and I'm like, well, great, I'm so excited to be here because my flight was fabulous. And that's really, they're the ones that sets the tone for the beginning of a trip or the end of a trip, and they could be able to do so much more when, WTF moments happen.
You nailed it, Stephanie. It is so crucial for anyone in an airline out there listening or watching this. You are setting the tone for that trip,
Yeah.
whether it is business or personal. You're setting the tone. So by the time we get that guest at our hotel,
Yeah.
they're already upset, right? And we don't even share the same scores. So let's do something about it. Let's try to mimic what some of these other airlines are doing in bringing hospitality into the way they do business. And let's just do it
Mhm.
across the board. Let's make a movement. Let's bring
Yes.
hospitality back to our beautiful airlines out there.
Yes, yeah. And we didn't even touch upon also too of like calling the airline. We all of our things have been like in-person interactions, but that could be our part three of airlines is the call center and calling reservations. You're like, yes, I know how to use the internet and change my flight, and it's not letting me, obviously, for some odd reason. I wouldn't be calling you. So I am calling you. And then they're like, okay, well, that'll be a $25 fee for me to be able to help you while you already booked on our airline. And I'm like, I could have done it myself. You on the website's just not letting me. So I have to call you.
And pay the $25 fee.
Yeah, exactly. And we're very savvy when it comes to travel, but I always think about like, okay, if my parents were in this situation, or my grandparents were in this situation, or friends that don't travel all the time, or they're traveling with their family and kids. Most of the time it's me and my girlfriends, so we really can deal with whatever the situation is. But I always think, putting myself in the other people's shoes of like, wow, if this would have happened to them, what would have, that sucks. And then they probably would have said, fine, I will pay the $25 because I need to get on this flight, instead of being like, no, I'm going to challenge that $25.
Here's another one. So how about this new trend of upgrading your seats in certain airlines, especially when when the trip is long? Not too long ago, we had an opportunity as a family to travel to Hawaii, and the the situation was when we are flying back home, we had premium seats, and the premium seats give you a little extra leg room, and you're paying a little extra too for your seats because
Hmm.
nothing is for free when it comes to airlines. So the book was oversold. The poor flight attendant, bless her soul, she was true hospitality because she always kept her cool. She never got upset. But what was interesting is they booked one of my kids, a minor, by the exit, which you can. It's like an emergency exit. You can't have a minor there. Then they oversold the rest of the seats. So now our premium seats were not really our premium seats, they were somebody else's, right? And when the flight attendant finally has someone from outside of the plane, like from the gate, come over to do a recount and recheck, they had to recheck the seat assignments, like after maybe like 20 minutes of realizing, yes, the flight is overbooked and you guys need to do something about it. But no, we went through all these protocols to try to figure out what the issue was, and it was so clear to see. But anyway, the flight attendant did great. The other woman that came from the gate to double check on everything, she kept on bashing the whoever it was that it was in the bookings department or whatever the case may have been. And they were like, no, and they did this and they did that, and we were all like staring like, we really don't care about what happened. We just want to get home and we would like to enjoy the seats that we paid for, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, be able to travel sitting besides our children so our children are not nagging someone else throughout the trip because that's not going to be
Yeah.
nice either.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is the profiling that the airlines does of, okay, if you book through the third party, you're basically treated like scum, but like, oh, but I'm like, no, maybe I booked through a package. Maybe I booked through the airline's credit card. Maybe but they just see that it wasn't like booked directly, or you don't have status, or you may look like you're not well traveled, or just all of those assumptions. And I think that even going through the DNI, is that the airlines are really going to have that part of their training, because it's going to definitely nip them of having a bad reputation with customer service, even worse than what there already is going on.
Yeah, for sure. Some definitely something to look out for.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, this was great. Another airline or another episode talking about airlines, our favorite. But as much as we bash them, I do miss being up in the unfriendly skies.
The
and
unfriendly skies. Let's go back to the friendly skies,
yes, yes,
right?
and
Let's bring
getting to
hospitality
see the
into the
world.
skies.
Yes. But all right, so we'll see everyone or look forward to having our audience be part of our episode for next week.
Sounds good. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for sharing your stories.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.